welcome to Linux User Space. I'm Leo.
And I'm Dan.
And I've been trying to protect myself here these past few days, and I think I've succeeded. I've not done a security audit, but I think I've succeeded.
So you're guarding yourself, Leo?
A little bit with the wires. The Wireguard.
Nice. So I will say, big fan of Wireguard here. I think it saved the day for a couple of things during early in the pandemic. We decided that we needed a backup solution for our VPN in case something happened to the VPN, because everybody was using the VPN, and heaven forbid, we knew we couldn't get there, so we set up a WireGuard as for just the IT staff to be able to backdoor into our network. And I will say it seems super secure, since you're basically just exchanging keys, and that's probably not something easily fabricated.
Yes. So I think that's the biggest point. I dreaded setting it up. I did not want to do it because I remember, and maybe it was because I was less seasoned at that point, but I remember the absolute pain it was to set up OpenVPN from scratch.
Yeah, it's not that. Not at all.
No. So, I mean, user management is mostly fine. I didn't enjoy it on OpenVPN or anything like that. But you could get like an OVPN file out of it, and then you just shuffle that around, and that was fine. But it wasn't really until PyVPN, where, even on it could be on a Pi, obviously, but it could also be on a Debian box or an Ubuntu box. So I had a VM that was dedicated just to the VPN.
Right.
And just set up PyVPN, and then their little utility, their PyVPN, I forget what the switches are now, or the options are now, but I mean, it was fairly easy to create a user, give it a password, create that little OVPN thingamajig, and just pass that around everywhere. So I really kind of fell in love with doing a VPN, which is essentially just me getting into my network from other places.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I fell in love with it with PyVPN, and I knew I wanted WireGuard when I guess it was like back in 2018 or so, where Linus Torvalds was like, "Yeah, this needs to get into the kernel like now." So once he said that, I was like, "All right, I'm going to totally get into this WireGuard thing. I'm going to do it, and I'm going to feel real good about myself." Yeah, that was in 2018. What time is this podcast? 2021. Yeah. Whoops. So it's a little while.
Right.
A little while.
Well, I know for me, it didn't land in the Ubuntu kernel until 2004. I mean, so you could load the DKMS modules before that, but it didn't land into the mainstream kernel itself without loading DKMS modules until 2004. So
right. And so that's where I actually built the WireGuard server. And I thought it was going to be, I'm going to have to go get this or that, or compile this, or maybe make this work. Nope. Apt install WireGuard, and that's all you need on the server side. All right, so that was it. That was the first thing. Once I did a little digging, found out that's all you got to do to get it installed. I was like, okay, maybe this won't be crazy difficult. Okay, so I started digging in. I think the hardest part of it is getting the IP tables after you start WireGuard, little scripty thing right. And it actually wasn't really that hard because, number one, I didn't have to do it. Other people wrote it, and I just kind of went backwards and made sure that it, or kind of figured out what it meant. Yeah. And after that, it was quite literally, if you can do SSH keygen and know what those pieces do, you can handle WireGuard. That really is as difficult as it is.
Exactly the same sort of process where you're exchanging those keys, and that's as hard as it gets, it feels like.
Yeah. So from a bird's eye view, understanding how it works, that's really it. If you can do key exchange, you've got this covered.
And And you really should be, if you're doing SSH, you really should be using keys.
Right. Yeah, of course.
So, you've got this practice down, I feel like.
Yeah, and it just felt too easy. I think that was why it didn't feel right the moment I got it done. There was one other little snag. I was able to connect, and I could see on the Wireguard server that it was connecting, and I could see on my client that it was connecting, but I couldn't do anything. I couldn't ping any internal IPs or anything like that. Turns out you have to turn on, NAT something or other in sysconfig or something like that.
Yep.
Yeah. Once I flipped that on, everything just started working. So I was so impressed. The speed is there.
It's line rate speed.
Yeah, I was very impressed with it because what I do, so the way that I use it is I get it on my phone, or the way that I mostly use it is I have it on my phone. And on the Wireguard app in iOS, and I'm sure all the other apps have this as well, you go into the settings and it's got two little toggles for automatic switch on, and that is on Wi-Fi or on cell.
Right.
And I turn it off on Wi-Fi because when I'm on Wi-Fi, because I'm still mostly working from home and all that kind of stuff, I'm here.
Right.
But on cell, obviously I've left the house and have left the range of the Wi-Fi, so I flip that one on. So the moment I leave my house and get out of Wi-Fi range, Wireguard immediately turns on. And I'm immediately, I guess my phone at least, still thinks it's on the internal network. Yeah. So I'm able to get, I'm still able to access Plex without hitting external servers and going through Plex TV and all that stuff. I'm still able to hit Nextcloud. I'm still able to, SSH into all of my machines without any kind of weird traversal, anything or other. It just seems way too easy. Why is it so easy, Dan?
I don't know, but I'm really not complaining.
Yeah, me either.
I think it's a great tool, and it's easily the best to get to your home network. If you've got a Linux box, which if you're listening to this podcast, you more than likely do. So
you probably do.
It's the easiest solution to get back in and connect to all your things.
Yep, thoroughly impressed. Couldn't believe how easy it was. My absolute favorite thing though about it is the one of the encryption schemas is cha-cha.
Yeah, cha-cha.
I love that. I think that was the turning point for me. Oh, cha-cha. Yeah, okay, definitely. Got to have Wireguard now. See, and I think they did it on purpose because they do a lot of that old song and dance for you.
Yeah. Yep.
It's good stuff, man.
All right, Leo, we've been doing KaOS for the month, and
is it KaOS or is it KaOS?
I know you can find some chaos anywhere we go, so I'll leave that to you later. I'm gonna say it's KaOS. I don't know. I feel like, and some of that stems back to the early beginnings, and I'll talk about that right here. It was originally called KDE OS, and you find very few hints of that anywhere, but that was the original name, and then it moved to KaOS. So I'm going to say they just kind of shortened the KDE part to K, and KaOS makes sense. I mean, you have all the other K apps. Why not a K operating system?
You got a good point there, Dan, but I'm going to have to disagree.
Okay, go ahead.
Here's my reasoning, okay? You never know what Plasma's going to do, and that just reminds me all the time of Jeff Goldblum's character in Jurassic Park and how he was on about chaos theory all the time. Yeah. So I'm going to go with KaOS. It's definitely KaOS, mostly because of that, right? You just never know what that little water droplet is going to do. Is it going to go this way? Is it going to go that way? I don't know. It's chaos theory.
Yeah, all right. I can buy that too, I guess. But sure. I don't know. I'm going to go with K. So we'll
fine.
We'll differ. We'll choose to disagree on that. So early 2013 was when the earliest hint of KaOS that we can find, and you won't you won't find a whole lot of information about KaOS. So I'm just going to say that.
I got to stop you there. I just have to. 2013?
Yeah, 2013. Why is it not so widely known, right? That's the big question.
Seriously, the first time I heard of KaOS was 2 years ago, maybe 1 year ago, but not 8 years ago.
Yeah, 8 years old.
They've been around forever, and they just hit my radar over the past couple of years. I can't believe they've been around so long, yet they never really bubbled up.
Yeah, so they're flying under everybody's radar, it seems like, because you'll find a few reviews here and there, not very many, though, and some of them are really old and way out of date. So there's that, too. So 2013, earliest post on their blog is in May, where they say most of their infrastructure was in place and about 800 of the planned 1,500 packages were in the repo. And they're still contemplating keeping this distro private at that point. And I'll say that is strange to me a little bit. Like, why go through all of these efforts in preparing all this just for yourself, I guess, or a few of your friends, because it is a lot of work, right?
It is, but I think that actually that right there, early on, they decided that they weren't going to have a huge social media presence so that they can tweet out every little move that every little person makes. And, you know, that still rings true today. You go to KaOS, what is their website? KaOSX.us, and you go searching around. They don't got a Twitter. They don't have a Discord group. They have an IRC channel, but
and they've got some forums, which are also very good.
Right. So they got forums and they have IRC, and as far as I could tell, that's pretty much it for socials.
Yep, not much. Gitter, they also have Gitter, which is now Matrix.
That's right.
So they have that as well.
But every single one of those leans very nerdy, I think.
Absolutely.
And I mean, you and I will join stuff like that because I think we fall into that category, but the masses tend to not fall into that category at all. So I guess it makes sense why they didn't quite bubble up until 2019,
That's
2020
true.
or so in a lot of the things that are out there.
Right. And going along with that, they also have a very narrow focus, and they're very public about that as well, where they are KDE Plasma, before that KDE 4, they're solely focused on that. They're focused on the Qt, toolkit, and everything's built upon that for the most part. They do have a few GTK things, but that's not their focus. They're focused very narrowly, and so they state that very early on. And so I guess to that point where they contemplate keeping it private, they're not looking to satisfy absolutely everyone out there. So they do try to keep it high quality, but a narrow focus.
Right. I think that is kind of the beautiful thing about KaOS. There are not many distros out there that take a strict and narrow focus like the KaOS folks have.
Yeah.
I think that's a fantastic thing.
I do too.
And I mean, they say as much on their website, right? I mean,
they upfront.
They want it to be a streamlined KDE Plasma distro, and that's all they're going to focus on. You're going to find very few outside of the Plasma kind of modules or libraries or anything like that, just simply because they have a focus. They have one focus, and it's Plasma.
And so, yeah, cool. Good on them. And I'll also talk about some of the things that, the foundation that this distribution is built on. They're set very early on in this distro. So most of the new things I am going to speak about are within the first couple of years, really. And then they just build upon that sort of thing going forward. And there's not a lot of change, if you will. They just keep it going. So there's a screenshot on the blog that is from July that shows the the panel on the right and a familiar wallpaper that you see, or at least we saw when we installed this time. That is the same wallpaper that is on this blog post in July of 2013.
Wait, seriously?
Seriously.
So it's that tulip-looking flower growy thing, right? So, wow, man. Speaking of sticking to your roots, right?
It looks good. So, I mean, I guess stick with it, I suppose, right?
Yeah. The other thing that they do, you mentioned it, was the panel on the right. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I don't know what you're doing. Don't put that over there.
I got an idea on that, right? So, like, Unity had the panel on the left, but it also moved your close and minimize buttons also over to the left, so that you spent most of your mouse time over on the left-hand side, probably, right? It's the same thing, only in the opposite. The panel's on the right, but your close and your minimize and all that stuff, they're on the right-hand side. So, in a way, it sort of makes sense. So you're keeping your mouse movements to the same side. Now, like an animal, I moved mine down to the bottom because that's just how my brain works.
Yeah, and I moved mine to the top because that's how my brain works, but I could totally see it being on the left. It would take some practice. I think I've just got muscle memory built in that, top left or top right is where you go to get your things. It would just take some practice for me to get, because, a lot of times what I'll do is, and I guess this was ingrained very, very early, is if you want to close something, you go to the top right. So it just feels wrong in that way to go up there to like open up the menu or find the menu up there if you hit the start. Well, what do you call that? The super key.
Yeah. So maybe my thinking is completely wrong, but I'm thinking the idea is to minimize your mouse movements and you keep everything kind of in the same quadrant.
Right. And that makes sense to me now that you say that. I think I'd still move it though. Knowing that.
Oh, I did.
Unless I really, really wanted to I guess dive into chaos. That's it, man. They just, you know what? That's what they wanted. They just wanted some chaos. So they slapped it over there to the right-hand side.
It's not a bad thing. So then August, there's some hints around trying to identify a installer. And so this is August 2013, still early. There's a few options being tossed around. Yali, which was the Parisi installer, the Linux Mint Live installer, and Chakra's Tribe. Those were all installers, and those were all being punted around. Interestingly enough, Parisi is a Debian-based distribution, and now they use the Debian installer. And as you know, Linux Mint is using Ubiquity. And Chakra is now using Calamares. So all of them have abandoned their installer program at this point and moved on to something else. But those were the ones that were being punted around. So early on, it's identified that something needs to be taking place for that, because while KaOS is not Arch, and I probably should have started off with that, it's not Arch. It is Arch inspired, though. And so Arch, as you know, is, the install program is not a graphical one in that regard, but they've identified that is something that is important to them to be able to have a good way to install it.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point to make, because if you get in there and you don't read anything else about it, you find out very quickly that it's Pac-Man in the background doing all of the installing, uninstalling, and hooking and all that stuff. So you could, on the surface, be pretty fooled about what it is that you're actually using until you realize that the contents of the repositories is very much different. So it's Pac-Man as your package manager, and that's about it.
Yeah, it's a little bit, once you scratch through the surface, it's something different. So, like I mentioned, steady progress, noted monthly. I mean, so you see a lot of blog posts, and pretty much every month, maybe they skip a month here or there. Since 2013, if you scroll back through all of the blogs, which is really impressive, that's a lot of work in it itself, in communicating with the community and getting the word out there about, what they're doing and the progress and everything. So I feel like that's a full-time job on it itself.
Oh yeah. I mean, I guess that's the community liaison or the advocate. That's their job, but you don't really get the sense that there's a whole lot of people back there, and they're not necessarily too forthright with who's all part of the project either. I didn't get a sense that they were really elevating a bunch of names. No, they don't. They aren't super public about that. We fished around a little bit and found a few things, but not very much. So yeah, in 2014 of June, they talk about this new installer that is Calamares in the beginning days of that. And so they're one of the first distributions really to jump into that, and they are very active still to this day in the Calamares development. So it shows through, and I think it's great to see that, long-term commitment there. Yeah, and that's one thing too that it kind of struck me as odd that, I mean, they'll work on this software that everybody ends up getting to use, yet we still don't hear a ton about them.
Right.
So it just strikes me as weird that happens, but it certainly did, and it certainly had for the next 5 or so years.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Also, around that same time, you hear a hint of the Plasma Next desktop, which is going to be a transition from the KDE 4 to the new, what is now Plasma 5 desktop. They start talking about that, and so they're spinning up separate ISOs for that sort of thing, because I will say this is very cutting edge. Everything that is coming down through KDE and Plasma, even to this day, is very current and like right on the cusp of just being released. So, and that shows throughout all of this.
Well, you said cutting edge, and I mean, you're not wrong in the least, because, and I know we're still in the history, but I can't not say this. It's same day. Yeah. The day that KDE releases Plasma 5.22.4, which is today, that's when it's available in KaOS.
I had it in my updates today.
Yeah, you do a little arch flavored Pac-Man SYU, and all of a sudden, that's the flavor of Plasma that you have in your updates. So, yeah. I mean, cutting edge is absolutely the vibe you get with this distro. As far as Plasma goes, you're always on the latest the moment you click that update button.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Another thing that gets identified here and sets the tone for pretty much throughout is they choose XFS for their file system.
Which is the antithesis of cutting edge.
it is, but it's also it's unique in that not many distros use this, right? Although you say it's antithesis, at that time, was it? I'm not sure. I think XFS was maybe not a terrible choice, because was ext4 out then? I can't remember.
I want to say it's all about the right timing for that stuff to be coming out or being fixed and stuff. So I mean, I guess now in 2021.
Oh, it's
but
not
that's the
anymore.
Thing, right? Like they never changed. They never changed it. It's still XFS to this
manually.
Day.
Yeah, you can go in manually and change it, but XFS is their default.
Right. So I guess then it may not have been the antithesis of cutting edge, but today it is.
For sure. Interesting that they chose it way back then and still have stuck with it. So, in August of 2014, you see like the first video of Calamares, and watching it, it's not all that much different than what it is now. I mean, obviously, there's a lot more polish put on it, and a few less texty things, and now some more graphical things have been applied, but and it's very similar in the working, and you could easily tell what it was back then.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So that's pretty cool. They're posting videos of that and getting the word out and whatnot. So that was pretty cool. First test ISO with Plasma 5 shows up in October of 2014, which is really early. I feel like that's they're like right on the edge there. And then early in 2015, February, they announce the end of KDE 4. Like they're cutting it off and they're moving on to Plasma 5. And if you remember the end of KDE 4, like it started to get good again. Like people really loved KDE 3, right? And they switched to 4, and 4 was like, everybody was like, this is horrible. It's a RAM eater. It's bloated. It's
crashes
all of
all
that,
the time.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Crashy. And then you get to the end of that and it's like, everybody's like, it's great. I don't want to move on to Plasma 5.
You're describing Windows Vista. Okay. Vista was great at the end, right when Windows 7 was about to come out, and everybody was like, "Oh yeah, no, this is totally cool. It's like Windows XP, but a little flashier, a little shinier." And then Windows 7 came out, and everybody forgot about Vista.
Yeah, it's the same thing. Well, it looked a lot like Plasma. KDE 4 looked a lot like Vista. If you look at it too, very plastic, rounded things, and then we went to the flat and.
It's a back and forth between Microsoft and KDE. I swear, it's just they share ideas. Each other. Yeah, probably. They must.
Same people working on it or something. I'm not sure.
That's what it is. It's a bunch of Microsoft UX devs and UI devs. They just moonlight in on KDE Plasma.
Well, good for them. Thanks for coming over to the dark side. Anyway, so yeah, like they're right there. They're cutting off KDE 4, moving on to Plasma 5, and that's in February of 2015. August of 2015, you see some instructions how to go into the command line and enable a Wayland session and try out Wayland. And we know how Wayland works today. Not so great necessarily everywhere. So you can imagine in August of 2015, that must have been absolutely fantastic timing to be on a Wayland session.
Terrible. I could not imagine how terrible nothing works.
Worked?
Like, I mean, Ubuntu just decided that Wayland is going to be in the new version of Ubuntu. What is it, 2110, something like that, right? To get ready for 2204
in October.
So we're just hitting that. And Fedora, what was it? Maybe a year ago?
The last one, 34, right?
That Wayland was default, but KaOS out here causing chaos. Allowing you to use 2015 Wayland in 2015. These guys, they really, I really think it's called chaos because of stuff like this. Because what happens if you just flip this switch? I don't know. Let's see what happens. Let's see what kind of chaos happens.
But it's that pushing the envelope thing that really moves everyone else probably forward too. So I find that to be a great thing.
And this is another reason why I don't know why they weren't plastered all over every Linux news site out there. This is groundbreaking stuff. This is just, nobody else tried this. Well, very few folks actually went out and tried this.
Yep. So November of 2015 brings a new logo, which you see today. Still same logo. That started in November of 2015, and some artwork that went along with that. And still very, very relevant even now. So like I said, early in the history, that's when the foundation got set, and they've just kind of solidified it since then. So yeah, starting in January of 2016, not all that far along after the November 2015, now you can select Wayland in the drop-down menu on the login screen. So yeah, here we are, like way back then. Just amazing to me.
I still can't believe it. You guys, it's crazy. Crazy to do stuff like this, but they did it anyway.
But like any open source project we've ever seen, there is sometimes a little friction in the community. And because they're so cutting edge, they kind of get called out on that a little bit. And so in this May 2016 blog post, it gets mentioned that, well, let me actually read about this, actually. KaOS has always been to focus on one toolkit. To that end, there was a lot of discussion in 2014 and early 2015 when and how to move to Qt 4-based desktop environment to a Qt 5-based Plasma 5 desktop. Many posts, news articles, release announcements have been used to make clear to all, whenever possible, KaOS would use Qt 5-based ports of any application, even if that meant using the Git versions versus the released tars. And they give some examples, and they've got some links there to the announcements and blog posts out there. And it says, further goes on to say, this policy has now led to branding KaOS as a second or third class citizen in the KDE ecosystem. As noted by one leading KDE developer in IRC, KaOS bugs will now be ignored and or immediately closed. These actions are not imposed to distributions that are large in parentheses question mark, who just this year announced they will ship all the latest KDE has to offer, including Git builds, and examples are Ubuntu-based Neon and OpenSUSE Argon, Krypton, using and reporting about Git versions by those is praised upstream. Bug reports very welcomed. So to counteract that, they came up with a little pop-up menu, if you will, that says, do you understand KaOS ships an unreleased frameworks 5-based version of Calligra words? And will you report bugs on the KaOS tracker, not the official KDE tracker? So little pop-up like that shows up. And they further go on to say, unfortunately for a small distribution like KaOS, there's nothing that can be done about this to accept these kinds of upstream discriminatory actions and add a little warning pop-up. And you've probably seen some of them already in apps like Ocular and Calligra Words. This explains why these have to show now. It makes sense for KaOS users going through the trouble to try to create useful bug reports in the KDE tracker, only to see their efforts being ignored and removed.
And so this was this post was in about May 2016.
Yeah, May 2016.
And so it begs the question. They mentioned KDE Neon. When was KDE Neon's first release?
I don't remember. We did that episode a while back.
In June of 2016.
Oh, interesting. So they must have announced it before that, though.
Right. So, but the initial release, I'm sure there were betas that were available or something like that. But if I'm not mistaken,
they weren't even released yet. Then you're saying,
right at the time that the post in that the KaOS group posted that particular announcement, KDE Neon did not exist, but was absolutely in the works. The first release of KDE Neon featured Plasma 5.
Yeah.
With Qt 5.
Right. And all the applications thereon too.
Yeah, see, and I'm not insinuating anything here, but it does make one think.
Yep.
I wonder if there was something going on there, or that,
something got rubbed the wrong way somewhere and people didn't really care for it, right? And that could be some of why we don't hear a lot about KaOS. They just like to just not get a lot of grief and just do their own thing and be their own thing and be the high quality distribution that they are. I don't know. I'm making a leap there, but that's the way it looks, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So that is May of 2016. June of 2016, we continue to see more progress. They just keep pushing along, even though, that's like all in the past. It's like water under the bridge because you never read about that again. So in June, they do some infrastructure upgrades and get some better mirrors and stuff. And they also update their forums to Flarum, which is a really cool looking, forum software. And they still have that today. So another one of those, set it early on and kind of forget it. You hear about more Wayland highlights in November of 2016. And then, just lots of steady progress until, March of 2017. They introduce their online package viewer. So you can go to their thing. This is cool. This is really cool. You go to their website, you can see all the packages, you can see when they're updated, you can see the version they're at. It's nicely done. And you can do that for other distributions as well. Go look at their packages that they have published and whatnot. But I don't know as any of them look as nice as this. I don't know how you feel about it, Leo.
I think it's fantastic. There were a couple of times where I was like, I'm not on KaOS right now, but I'm about to be. And I'd like to know if I just go, Pac-Man, I don't even know what the thing is, Pac-Man S, yeah. To install something, will it work? And I could just do a quick search on their site, and that it brought it up or it didn't, right? I mean, I think I did that specifically with TLP because I wasn't positive, and I wanted to know if it was going to install all of the TLP things. And I mean, it did, as far as I know. I needed my ThinkPad thing, which was separate, but all of TLP installs with just Pac-Man S TLP. Yeah. Okay.
Cool. Yeah. No. So I think it's really nicely done. It looks good. You get all the info you need, which is, it's a lot of work probably keeping all that maintained. So there it is. Pretty great. Next big thing that we'll bump into is in April of 2018. And that is Croeso. That is Croeso is Welsh for welcome. And that replaces Captain, I guess, with a K, or their first run wizard. And their welcome tool is pretty cool.
I gotta say, I'm pretty sure at the beginning of this whole thing where we started doing KaOS, Dan was like, do they have Welsh in Duolingo? And, I didn't know at the time, but I'm pretty sure Dan is now fluent in Welsh after this month.
Maybe not. I got one word. I mean, I'm not fluent in English, and that's the only language I know.
Yeah, me either, man. Me either. But we keep doing this thing. We'll figure out English eventually.
Yep. No, so Croeso is a really cool application, and April 2018 gets introduced, and thank you very much for that, because I think that's a fabulous thing. So the forum posts are long gone, but this is a topic you brought up, Leo. So the forum posts are long gone, but KaOS was accepted into the Linux Foundation Community Bridge in 2019, and so you found this little nugget. So I'll let you run away with that.
Yeah, so it seems like there's a lot of forum posts that you can scrape, right? Like with search engines, or that show up linked on other websites that no longer exist. And the reason why this matters is I think there's a lot of things that may have just been lost to time. And we've been talking a lot about the history, but this is just the history that we can find.
Yeah.
I would imagine there is a ton of history that was buried in forums that no longer exist, and this is just one example of it. I found where KaOS had two separate announcements that they were applying for and that they got accepted to the Linux Foundation's Community Bridge around 2019, but those links no longer work, and I have no idea what their opinions on it are, except for the fact that, well, today they're still part of the Community Bridge. So I mean, if you're going out and you actually like KaOS, you test it out, or you like it, or you just want to keep it, or you want to support it, you can do that. I've got a link to that in the show notes, but it just seems like there's a lot of stuff about KaOS that has been lost to time, and that it really kind of adds credence to the whole, that they're not very open about a lot of the stuff that they have. I mean, it's there. If you grab it, if you scrape it, if you have it, it's fine. But they're not going to worry too much about making sure that everything is archived so you can see absolutely everything that there is. So just one of those things that may be lost to time one of these days. But now it's on this podcast, so it'll never be lost to anything.
Yeah, never going to go away now. Yep. And so, but like you mentioned, the Linux Foundation still noted on their website. Like you look on their pages, and they're still part of that community bridge. So definitely really cool thing. And I don't know, there aren't a lot of distributions, I think, that make as much notation of that, I think, on their websites.
Right.
So I think that's something to take note of, if nothing else. So in 2020, we're really, moved right along through the last few years here, because it's a lot of the same, and they just keep publishing a lot of the same, and keeping packages up to date, and that's a lot of work. I can't imagine.
And the speed that they do it at. So I mean, there's a lot of automation involved, obviously, but
but somebody's got to keep track of that,
right? There's a human involved somewhere, and they put in a lot of work, and it's just impressive the amount of work that they do.
Just steady. And so 2020, you see a move to implementing QML modules into Calamares, and just kind of making that pretty, and it adds some clarity, which Leo definitely noted in the slideshow portion of the installer, and it makes it a lot more attractive. Like you'll notice it in the package chooser portion, where it looks a lot better. And the same with like the welcome module and the keyboard module. All of those things, they just look really nice and give you some more info.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love their rendition of the Calamares installer. I mean, I think, I'll talk about it a little bit more, but I mean, it's just so descriptive in all of the things that it's going to do. But, I think it's something that we should praise, that you're only going to see this one time ever. Assuming your hard drive doesn't blow up, right?
Yeah,
but,
hopefully.
I mean,
right?
You're only going to see it one time, and yet you can see that they've put a ton of work into the thing that you'll only see once. It's just impressive.
It's true. It does give you a first impression of any distribution. I think the installer is pretty important. Like you said, you're probably only going to hit it once, but you want to walk away from that with a good feeling, and be able to follow it easily and get through it without difficulty. So I think the amount of attention that they put into it is really important. But that's me, and that's my sort of thing too. So I can completely understand where they're coming from. Last little nugget that I've got here as far as history, which is recent history almost. Around the first of this year, 2021, their first ISO with Qt 6 is appearing, and it includes some applications that are built against that. And so they're still pushing the envelope, still moving it forward, and not many other distributions are doing that. So I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, especially in a time where we're not 100% sure what's exactly going to happen with all of that. I think the KDE Foundation, or the KDE group, has said that they're going to keep Qt 5, and they're just going to patch it with the things that come out in Qt 6. They'll backport that to Qt 5. But KaOS, no, they're not doing none of that.
No, they're just going to move forward.
They're just going to move straight to Qt 6 and call it a day. It is the newest of the new. That's what this distro is about. That's what they care about. And that's just how it's going to be. So I wonder if there will be any kind of drama between Qt 5, the move between Qt 5 and Qt 6 like there was, and I'd say drama, but that might be blowing it over a little bit, from Qt 4 to Qt 5.
I don't think that the transition is going to be as wild as it was from Qt 4 to Qt 5, with 5 to 6. I don't think that's going to be quite the game changer. It's going to have some things that will break and will need fixing, but it's not going to be wildly different. So I don't know that it's going to be the same as it was before, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, likely not. But hey, I guess as long as the forums stay up long enough for us to steal all that stuff, then we'll know.
Yeah. So their forums you mentioned the forums, they go way back. Even though they migrated forums at some, when I mentioned, they still kept all of the archive forum stuff and migrated it into the new forum. So you can still search all of the old things, or as much as they migrated anyway, and look for some of that history in the forums too. And it is chock full of information. It was really great. I think, a lot of distributions have forums, but these are some of the best.
Yeah, definitely. There's tons of information in it.
So KaOS, base system, Arch inspired, but it's its own independent thing, and they make that abundantly clear. Running Plasma, sole focus, gonna run Plasma, gonna be top notch. Your file manager is Dolphin, package manager, Pacman on the command line. Your graphical package manager is going to be Octopi, which you will also find in Arch.
That's what got me. Wait. So it's installed. Well, it's not installed by default in Arch because nothing is installed by default in Arch.
Right. No, but you'll find it
available in Arch.
Yeah.
Right. And I thought it was just an interesting choice because it really reminded me of like Synaptic or DNF Dragora, right? But it's got
maybe a little prettier, but it's pretty similar.
Yeah, it's got some other features though. It ties directly into the KCP, which we haven't really talked about just yet. But
we haven't. That's one of the things I want to highlight here.
In just a little bit, yeah.
Yep. The kernel, 5.12, which is, that's as of today. I don't know what the exact release, but
I'll tell you, it's 5.12.13-1 because I did a Pac-Man SYU right before we did this thing. Yeah,
and so that is super current. Right there towards the edge of it. Your display manager, SDDM, and they got Wayland and X11. So I will say that I did try Wayland, and I know you did too, and I also did some X11 stuff too. So
I started on X11. I couldn't find the blur. Look.
Whoops.
Can we roll right into the discussion because I've got a lot to say about this blur right now?
Well, go ahead, run with it, Leo.
Okay, before we do, I want to say, so again, the private thing, it just seems, I don't know. So I go to the KaOS GitHub and I realize the people list, unless you contribute, are part of it. It's hidden, but I did find DEM, DE, 3 M's, seem to be the most prolific contributor to KaOS. So I don't want to say that they are the main dev for KaOS, but it sure looks that way.
Yeah. And so you will also find them very active in the Calamares GitHub and in, the IRC, and, closing bugs and stuff for Calamares and triaging, and all of those things. So very active, not just in the distribution, but also upstream and contributing into other parts of the, what make the whole distribution. So that's pretty great.
Yeah, and so for the folks that are yelling all the time, well, does it go to upstream? Yeah, it does.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, absolutely.
This DEM person does a lot of work for a lot of different distributions indirectly. So I mean, kudos to them. Kudos to them.
I see what you did there.
I'll stop with that. But okay, I got to talk about Blur. Because I was very upset.
Ahead.
I was very upset.
I tried to fix it for you.
No, you did. You totally did. Okay, so I load up KaOS, I install it, I go through all the stuff. I'll rewind and talk about the install and all that. But I load up and I go into the terminal, and my favorite little toggle is enable blur, and I check it, and I hit OK, and no blur. I was so disappointed. I was like, oh my God, there's a module not installed. There's a library missing. There's something going on that I don't know what they're, and so I changed the theme. I did all kinds of things trying to make blur go, and then I felt real dumb when Dan was like, hey,
we just got to toggle that on there, buddy.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh, what do you mean you got blur? What did you do? And he said, well, I'm on Wayland, and I'm like, okay, well, let me get onto Wayland. No blur. There was no blur on Wayland, and I was very upset about this. And Dan has a screenshot, and this is the point where I feel real dumb. And the screenshot was in the deep down in the KDE configuration. There's a little module that you have to enable called blur. And apparently, okay, so it's not 100% my fault,
No.
but 99.999% my fault, right? Every KDE Plasma-based distro that I've ever run has had that option toggled on by default. KaOS does not have that toggled on by default, so it just escaped me that I would need to turn that on, and once I turned that on, all of my upsetness went away. Because I got blur, and I've got blur now, and I'm looking at it, and it's beautiful, and it's my favorite thing about Plasma. It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
It is beautiful. I enable it, and I also was able to get my favorite theme for console, and that is Cheerful Fantasy.
That's the one that just pukes rainbows everywhere.
Yeah, it's not really it's just it does have, it's mostly white text, honestly. But it's
okay.
Kind of a bright, but like the accent colors are like a purple. And so they're very soothing, I think. I don't know. I really like it.
I tend to gravitate toward a lot of pinks and a lot of bright purples. And so Dracula and Monokai Soda really tickle my my terminal
either
fancy.
Of those as well. So it also gives a little tint to the background as well, even though it's transparent. It gives a little shade of purple to that, and then when you add the blur with the noise and stuff, it feels good.
Chef's kiss.
Yeah, right. So that's my favorite. And so they had default, that. It was great.
I like the default theme, and I didn't think I could ever really get along with anything that had text that wasn't white. I can do the green text for a little while. I can do the Fallout orange text for a little while, but these guys go with a kind of a medium blue.
Right.
And it just didn't occur to me to use that text color, and it's nice. They've got pink accents and everything. Right. It's really close to kind of converting me over to a non-white text.
Yeah. And so talking about themes, though, I want to take that a step further. And so, like everything else, every other distribution, KaOS has their own theming, and they call it Minna. And it's very nice. They have a light and a dark, and that has been around since the beginning of time for them. And I really like it. And so you mentioned the blue. It's got like a little blue tint to it a little bit. And it's in the dark theme. I'm using the dark theme. So it's got like a little blue hue to it. And I don't know. Again, it feels good. It's almost like the console theme that I like. So it's got that shade to it. And the icons are fantastic, I think. It's the only place you'll find them that I know of.
I've never seen them by default anywhere else, and I do like them. So for those of you folks that jumped on the it was maybe like a year or two ago where it was like, don't change our icons.com or something. Do you remember that whole controversy?
I don't know, that's craziness.
Anyway, that's not for this icon theme.
This is not for that,
because they change it all, man. The Audacity, icon is. I like it. It's actually very good. But yeah, if you like stock icons in a lot of places, this is not the theme.
This
for you.
Is not stock. No,
but it is very nice. Different. I really enjoyed the theme.
Yep, I think they were good. So that's super impressive.
Definitely. So I got to talk about Croeso.
Okay.
So again, welcome in Welsh. It is it's pretty amazing because the very first thing that you are presented with after you install and you get booted up and you log in and everything, Croeso pops out And it's got all the customization things that you would ever want. So for all those folks that are like, oh, I can't ever figure out how to change this or that in KDE Plasma because there's 7,451 different options that you can toggle, and then there are sub-options. No. If you're trying to theme it up, Croeso front and center puts all the things that you need to make KaOS look exactly the way that you want. And I think that is, I mean, it's a tinkerer's dream, right? I mean, if you like Plasma, if you like the way that it handles, if you're not going to go out and like strip out half of Plasma and replace it with something else, then I think Croeso does a fantastic job of putting the bits in front of you, like front and center in front of you.
Well, I gotta throw out my embarrassing moment.
Uh-oh,
at first, I'm thinking, well, it's not really embarrassing. It's just, I first look at that and I think, well, that's kind of plain. And then it's got a lot of buttons, right?
Yeah.
And
it does.
I don't really click through all of them. But one thing that doesn't really stand out is all of the tabs, if you will, on the bottom.
Oh, okay.
And so they don't stand out. But once you start clicking through them, yes, you're right. Everything is configurable. All the options are presented to you. Yep. And that is fantastic. I really love this application. I think it's a fantastic thing. Just, I didn't really click through all those at first. Like, at first I'm like, oh yeah, I'll get back to the welcome thing later. I just want to, get going and get myself set up.
What is it going to do? Let me change my icon theme. Yeah.
Yeah. But I didn't change, like, I left it so it would start up again the next time I started. So like the first time through, I just kind of threw that aside and kept going and got myself set up. And then the next time I come back through and I'm start clicking through all of the options, and there are a lot of options. It's fantastic.
Yep. Absolutely. So, I mean, so from left to right, you got customize, which is, that's where you start. It's all of the things that you would need to change in KDE Plasma to make it look the way you want. Then you have packages, so you can install additional web browsers, music players, image manipulation stuff, so, GIMP and all that. Then, okay, here's my favorite thing. My favorite thing. And I still have this wallpaper. Normally, I'm a wallpaper fiend. I like to have very custom wallpapers. I don't dig most of the stock wallpapers. Sometimes, but I would say 90% of the time I change it. Here's the thing. In these wallpapers, they have a bunch of CC0, Creative Commons 0. So basically, there's no copyright on them at all. You can use them however you want to, and all that kind of good stuff. And so I was telling Dan the other day that as I was scrolling through, I realized that there was a lot of there was a Mexican tequila and a Mexican soda, and that was all it was. And so I have an Espolón tequila background right now, but that's just what was submitted at that time. So they pull from a specific website, and it's all the CC0 stuff, and so it changes all the time. So when I installed a month ago, and you install today, we'll never see the same wallpapers. But
which is great.
I just think it's fantastic because you have, it's great to have all these wallpapers that you can pick from at the beginning, but I think it's also great, and in my personal opinion, I think it's better to just have random stuff. Good stuff. Like this is photography grade. This is not,
these are from Unsplash, I think, right?
Oh, is that where it's from? Okay.
I think so. I think a lot of them come from Unsplash, which is very popular, and a lot of really good, you're right, a lot of really good photographs.
They are,
good quality wallpapers to be chosen from there. And it's almost like variety, right? In the sense that you're constantly picking, you can constantly pick a new wallpaper anytime you want, and they're really good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the one thing that I hated about the wallpaper thing, though, was like on the laptop, I would scroll. It took forever. Like 2-finger scroll, it's
slow.
Terrible. You got to grab the thing on the right and...
It's slow?
Yeah. You got to grab the little handle and just crank it down. Otherwise, you'll never get through it, man. Like 3 swipes will get you to the next image. There, that I think could use a little tweak. But other than that, I mean, the images were fantastic. I loved it.
Cool.
And then they've got docs for you to get all your information. I mean, I think that's pretty standard for a welcome screen. They've got advanced stuff like where you can change your firewall, you can change your energy savings, so like your screen brightness and all that. You can configure system D daemon. You can configure the KDE wallet, your network management, Pacman cache, like all of these things that tend to be a little difficult and a little high level. I mean, while they are not necessarily explained here, all of those things are laid out for you here. So it does make for ease of getting to, but not necessarily ease of use.
Well, they do link you off to some documentation too, though. So,
they do.
I mean, so that's there too. So can't totally dismiss that they don't help you at all, because
they definitely help you.
They give you some of that, which is pretty great. A lot of folks don't do that either. So I mean, nice to be able to have that.
Exactly. So they definitely point you to the forum. They definitely point you to all the help.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, how much documentation do you have to read to be able to configure the system D daemon, right?
Yeah. Well,
it's a little high level,
right?
And then of course they've got news. So I mean, this is something that I think you would want to come back to. So it's not just a welcome screen to like the installer where you hit it one time. It's come back to it and check out the news, because there might be something that you need to know in there. Or if you just like to follow along with what's going on, that's built in as well. So I think that's really, really good.
Well, contrary to most people, I actually left it toggled on so that it starts when I start up.
I did too. I did mostly so I could check out some more of those wallpapers. They were pretty cool.
Yeah, well, I kept wanting to click more buttons because there was a lot of them.
There really are. There really are. So I did. So after our recent conversation with Simon Peter, I had kind of gotten on this app image kick where I like, you know what? Before I go to Flatpak, before I try the repo, let me just see if there's an app image out there for it. And I did. So, I mean, I knew there was an app image out there for Bitwarden. So I went ahead, hopped over to the Bitwarden website, downloaded the Bitwarden app image. And I'm like, well, let's see, before I install Flatpak, if I could just get by with this. And yeah, I ran into an issue. So the moment I run Bitwarden, nothing happens. You double click on it, make sure that the execute bit's on, right? Obviously. And you double click on it, and then nothing happened. Double click on it again, nothing happened. All right, so I crack open the terminal and I run it through the terminal, and I get an error message. The SUID sandbox helper binary was found, but is not configured correctly. Rather than run without sandboxing, I'm aborting now. So.
Well, thanks for doing that on my secure application, please.
Yeah. Well, actually, it's huge. That's absolutely huge. I would have never checked.
Right.
So Bitwarden is meant to be sandboxed because of the nature of Bitwarden, which is it's got all your passwords in there. You don't need other applications or anything on the system being able to poke within it. And that, I think, is an important thing. So it didn't run. But I did go grab, I grabbed Krita because I needed to do a little bit of image editing really quickly, and that one worked fine. So it seems like, at least at the current moment, app images that require the SUID sandbox helper binary don't work. they just don't.
Or maybe they take some configuration that we don't know about, which is, it is what it is, right?
Exactly.
Yep. But they don't work for us as just clicking on it, like which you would do.
Right. And I was trying to hop on this app image life, right? And I just couldn't do it with Bitwarden. So luckily for me though, in the main repository, you can just install Flatpak, reboot, and now you got all the Flatpak stuff. So that's how I installed Discord. Yep. That's how I got Bitwarden after the fact. And so most of that worked just fine. And so between app images and Flatpak, I was able to get software that I wasn't normally able to get in any other way.
Yep. So you're skirting on something that I definitely want to talk about, and that's that KDE Plasma and Qt and all of those things, those are the narrow focus. We mentioned that. And so that means the repositories are also very limited in what they support, if you will, as a first-class citizen. But there are ways around it. And one of them that you mentioned is Flatpak. They do offer Flatpaks as something that you can do. And we all know there's I mean, that gets you around for a lot of the applications. But,
oh yeah, I think the only application outside of App Image and Flatpak that I installed was NCDU.
okay.
Just because I wanted to see how much space things were taking, or nothing out of the ordinary.
So, but there's, that's not for everybody. Not everybody loves a Flatpak. They want something that's a little more native. They've got a workaround for that too. And while, as Leo found, not a perfect solution, it's a workable solution, and that is KCP, or the KaOS community packages, which you want to think of that like the AUR, or the Arch User Repository. So community members can create these packages and submit them to the KCP, and those are kind of curated, if you will, a little bit, or at least the membership thereon too is curated through the KaOS main development team. And so in order to get in there, you've got to be somebody that's got to follow some guidelines, which they have posted on their website. And I think it's a great way to contribute to the project and not really contribute to the project, if you will. So
right,
you could totally be a sponsor for a single package that is outside of the normal repositories and just kind of keep that up to date. So one of the ones that I installed seems to be very current, and that is Vivaldi, the browser. And that worked really well for me. Whoever's maintaining that is doing a great job. Thank you.
Yep.
And so you just do a little KCP install, Vivaldi magic, and they've got the instructions on their webpage, and there it is. So it's not something they normally carry in the repository, but it's available pretty native like.
Yeah.
So,
one of the stated goals that they have for the KCP, because I read through all of that on how to actually do that, how to become part of the community, how to update your software and all that. The big rule that really stood out to me was, this ain't the AUR. Don't just bring over your AUR package builds and plop it in there. It's got to be specific to KaOS.
Right. It works very similar though. So the package builds are like, it's a recipe. And so that is going to pull in the things and compile them kind of right there in front of you.
Yeah. I mean, exactly the way that it was in the AUR, right? I mean,
yeah, it's exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So if you're using Yay to install something from the AUR or whatever, you get the same kind of output that you would if you use KCP. So KCP-I and say Vivaldi is the case, hit enter on that. And then, it asks you a few questions. Do you want to make any specific changes to the package build? And then once it gets everything figured out, you just hit enter or yes on, go ahead and install all that stuff, and it'll take care of your dependencies and everything else. So it's very AUR-like.
Right.
But again, it's not the AUR. It's specific to KaOS.
Right. So much like the AUR, you should really check the build scripts here and make sure they're doing what you think they are and want them to.
Right.
Because even though they're curated, it's basically just running a script, if you will. That's oversimplifying, I know, but it's very similar in the process. So you want to make sure you know what's going on.
Exactly. So take the same precautions you would with the KCP as you would with the AUR, which a lot of people that run Arch, their case, I don't know, that's just install. Don't even check it. But hey, software. Then I guess, right?
Right. But it opens up a whole world of applications that aren't necessarily available, and you don't have to go out and grab a Flatpak and that sort of thing. So I mean, I think it's kind of cool.
And stuff that doesn't exist as a Flatpak, right? Vivaldi doesn't exist as a Flatpak.
Yeah, no, it doesn't.
Brave
You're right.
Doesn't exist as a Flatpak, though. I did install Brave, and while it is mostly up to date, the maintainer I think is about 11 days out, and there have been a couple of updates since then. So if you're running Brave, keep an eye on it. Vivaldi seemed to be perfect. but Brave a little on the slow side, which is okay, I think, as long as there are no game-breaking security bugs that affect you and that you're worried about. But then again, I wear my tinfoil hat, so I need to be as updated as I possibly can.
Yeah. Well, the fact that it's only a couple of weeks, that's not too far out. Although it is a browser, you're right.
Yeah. And especially for cases like now where I'm running KaOS and I'm not exactly sure how to deal with some of the things, right? Like I'm installing things like TLP and the ThinkPad modules to be able to handle my battery and all that kind of thing. I like to have a little bit of protection. And in my case, my protection is Timeshift. And while we're not running ButterFS, we're running XFS, Timeshift will still work because it uses rsync. And you just give it another disk, and it'll drop all your stuff there. It'll have a backup. So there were a couple of dependencies. I can't remember the other one, but it didn't install by default. It said that Pacman would not install it. And then the other one was libgee, Libgee. And I have a feeling that has to do with TG Tech, who's the guy that does Timeshift.
Yeah, Tony George, yeah.
Yeah, is not available in the KaOS repo. So the previous library and this library was not available in the KaOS repos. So Timeshift just failed to install via the KCP. So it's not in the main repo. It's only available in the KCP. I would like to have had it just for that little extra bit of security, though I didn't need it, obviously. But it would have just been a nice to have kind of thing. And it just didn't work. And I started digging around a little bit, and I realized that in the KCP, the libgee library hasn't been touched since about 2017.
Wowie.
So not that maybe the library had no updates.
Yeah, maybe. You're right.
But eventually I was digging and digging and digging, and I realized it didn't exist. So it didn't exist in the KCP, which is what it kind of led me to believe. It didn't exist in the main repo, which is where I ended up looking after the fact. So Timeshift is just unbuildable via the KCP, yet still shows up as an option. If you do KCP-L, which will list all of the options, Timeshift is there. So
I wonder if this is not a case of where somebody did adapt that AUR package and just kind of threw it in there.
Maybe it's
is the sort of thing that they're warning against. I wonder.
Well,
right?
I don't know, because the KCP actually had a reference to libgee. It did exist at one point. Yeah. But it doesn't exist now. So I was like, all right, fine. Maybe I can build it or something. So they gave. That. And here's the thing: they gave instructions in the KCP on how to build libgee, but it failed. And then underneath that, they gave me a link to download the zip to compile it myself. And I was like, you know what? I want Timeshift just bad enough that I'll do this. I will compile it. It didn't download. So I click on the download zip button and it 404'd me. So.
Well, so was that from GitHub?
No, I would have to go find it again, but I mean, was.
So you just didn't have a valid link there. That's not good,
right? So, but it was a KCP link. It was a link in KCP, and it gave me the instructions how to build it myself, and then it gave me the zip that would allow me. Well, I'm sorry. It gave me the KCP link that would allow KCP to build it for me, or the zip for me to build it myself. And neither of those options that did exist in the KCP, neither of them worked.
That's too bad.
Yeah. So, and that's not the norm. I mean, obviously, the KCP has a lot of good software in it that you can download and install. It just happened to be that one of the softwares that I really enjoy myself, it didn't work.
Yeah, there is a lot there, and I'm super happy that it exists because, like I said, narrow focus, not necessarily a lot available.
Focus, yeah.
Yep.
But the last thing that I'll complain about, because there's a lot to love about KaOS, and I do really enjoy it. But the last thing is, you remember Linux Mint got a lot of flack for a little while, and I think Elementary OS did as well, where in the terminal you open it up and you type a sudo something or another, and it asks for your password, and the password is shown in stars.
Yeah,
there was a security bug about that a little while back. that eventually did get fixed, but there was a lot of flack thrown around because, well, why are you even showing stars at all? It's a usability thing. Well, anyway, in KaOS, they do kind of sort of the similar thing, but if you've ever typed a password into your phone, every letter you type shows in clear text, and then once you get to the next letter, that gets obfuscated, and the next letter is shown, and then that gets obfuscated, and the next letter is shown. That is done on the login screen. And I don't really have to deal with a whole lot of shoulder surfers, but that just makes me feel uneasy, having even a single character of your password shown up. I don't enjoy that. But, certainly you can turn that off. I'm sure it's an SDDM thing where you can turn that off or something or another. But
I actually think there might be an update that seems to have resolved that, honestly.
Really? So that was a thing?
Just trying that, and mine is not showing. So, hopefully, like you said.
Mine still does it. It still does it. I logged out real quick, and yeah, it's still...
I wonder what I did to fix that, because mine just shows a dot.
So I press the letter, and
the character.
For about half a second, the character shows up. Yeah, I didn't do anything special. I'm pretty sure I didn't check a box that was like totally show everybody my password.
I don't think I did either, but maybe I did something.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'll give it another install and see what I can find about that. But
maybe my computer is slow and it's never gonna show that. I don't know. Weird things, different computers. Everybody's got something different, right?
Well,
maybe it's my theme. I don't know. I mean, so like theming is a thing, and I clicked a whole bunch of buttons and boxes, and it might have changed that. I don't know.
Maybe so. So, what do you think about KaOS?
I really like it. I think it's great. I think the fact that they have the narrow focus and do the things really well, rather than do a whole bunch of things and just scatter yourself about and do 75 different desktop environments and try to get them all. And while some distributions can do that, I would imagine as a small team, which we don't really know how big they are.
Yeah, but it seems small.
As a small team, I can appreciate that. You're doing one thing and you're doing it really well, and you're just kind of focusing on some small bits. I think that's good. I think that brings the quality right up there where it needs to be.
Yeah, I think it's probably one of the best Plasma experiences I've had.
Absolutely.
If the focus really is on Plasma and the small number of and I say small, it's not small, it's thousands, but I mean the number of packages that they handle, if that's enough for you, and maybe Flatpak to kind of take you a little further if you need Discord or something like that. I mean, it's a really good desktop. I agree. Really enjoy. I did not have, outside of the couple of things that I mentioned, I really didn't have any adverse experiences with it. I mean, I got to check a box. That was obviously my fault, and then I got my blur. But I just needed to go check that box.
Yeah, the gripes are really small, really tiny, super smooth. It's amazing to me the quality of the Wayland session. Like Plasma's been getting. Plasma's been getting better, but like they used to get a lot of heat for the Wayland session. Yeah. Up until recently, they've put a lot of work into it, and they're really keeping up with it, and it works really smooth. It's super nice.
Yeah. So 5.21 and 5.22 got a lot of that Wayland love, and the fact that in KaOS you get it immediately means that you get to enjoy that Wayland love real fast.
Yep. And so like screenshots were a thing in Wayland, couldn't do that. I had a nice good screenshot. It looked good.
Oh yeah.
I posted it in Telegram.
Oh yeah. No
problem. And OBS was another one that, I don't know, questionable whether it works in Wayland or not. And, while I didn't try that, I gotta believe that, they've got that nailed down too.
Yep. So, and OBS had some announcement recently that that were Wayland support's going to be a whole lot better. I would imagine.
So some of the work's on the application, some of the work's on the desktop environment, and I think it's really starting to come together.
Yeah, for sure.
So that was super impressive. I think those are things that even though they're cutting edge, they work really well.
Mm-hmm. So, real question is, are you keeping it?
I might keep it around. I'm not sure. It's quality enough that I don't feel like I'm in a hurry to move off of it.
Right. Yeah, no, I think that's kind of it. I mean, most of my stuff is done in just a very few set of applications and in the browser. So I wouldn't have to move off of it, but I don't know that I think I'll make it my daily driver.
Well, yeah, it probably won't be my daily driver either, but I think it ranks right up there as one of the best.
Yep. If Plasma is important to you, I mean, it's right here. This is a fantastic implementation of it.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Housekeeping.
Housekeeping. Make sure to install your KaOS.
Yes. Enter the KaOS.
Be one with the KaOS.
Woo, clean up your KaOS. The Linux and open source community has some fantastic members, and we want to make sure to highlight that. In our showcase for this episode, we want to draw your attention to Phoronix.
Wait a minute. What is this? Is that a podcast?
Well,
I've
it's
never
a website.
heard of this place. I've never heard of this place ever.
It's a test suite. It's a website. It's everything. It's pretty great. And if you're looking for news, one of the top places I think you should look.
Really? Never heard of this place ever in my whole life.
Okay. Well, that's too bad because we're going to mention it now and you're going to go look at it, I'm sure. So Michael Larabelle, I don't know if if he sleeps. I'm not sure because
I'm pretty sure. Maybe an hour at a time.
Maybe he's a robot. I'm not sure because he's very very quick on any news item that comes out. It's fantastic.
Absolutely. I mean, so joking before, I mean, Phoronix is probably one of the places that I get most of my news from. Mm-hmm. I mean, and it's not just the normal news. It's not, the new kernel came out. He does cover that. This, really popular software that every other news outlet is covering. This is some down and dirty, gritty news about processors that haven't even hit customers' hands yet. He's got them. He's running them through his Phoronix test suite. He's giving you statistics on them. He's telling you how much better it is than the last one was. He's comparing it, if you got an AMD chip here, he's comparing it to the Intel chips. If you've got an AMD card here, he's comparing it to the NVIDIA cards that already exist. The amount of info, this goes to your, I don't know if this sleeps comment. It's true. The amount of content he puts out every single day, I'm pretty sure he works like 80 hours a week.
In a day.
Yeah, I don't know how he does it, but it's impressive the amount of just work that he puts into this every single day. It's impressive.
Yeah, absolutely. Deep dives into, statistics that you're not finding anywhere else.
Oh, yeah.
So, awesome website. Go check it out.
Yeah, subscribe to the RSS feed. That's how I get it straight to the vein. Yeah. That's how I do it.
I'll have a link in the show notes. Yeah, feel free to check it out. Feel free to send your emails to contact@linuxuserspace.show. We also have our Matrix room where we got some feedback over there about Library and Odyssey, and future Dan and future Leo will definitely be looking into that. We have our Telegram group, and you can join us at linuxuserspace.show/Telegram. And if those chat platforms aren't enough for you, we also have Discord, and I'll have a link down there in the show notes for that. You can follow us at Twitter at Linux User Space to get all the latest announcements for this show and highlights that impact your user space. Lastly, don't forget to rate this podcast on iTunes or your favorite podcast application, and like, comment, and subscribe on YouTube, where we've been trying to enhance our video edition.
I think you're gonna, if you're already watching this and you've already made it to the housekeeping section, then you already know what I'm about to tell you, which is I think we have upgraded this time around. There's nice, neat little features over there, or maybe there.
There's some up there.
One of those directions.
I don't know. We got stuff all over the place.
It's all over the place. Check it out. It's fantastic. I think it's fantastic. Maybe I'm tooting my own horn. I don't know. Maybe I'll boost the toot too. Here and there.
Yeah. Now you can see us toot our horn. You can always get more information at our website, linuxuserspace.show.
All right. We got a narrow focus.
Narrow. I like
Very
narrow.
narrow focus. And we're going to talk about backups.
Okay.
Because backups are important, right? And
Well, especially when you make an oopsie.
that's my thing. I make oopsies sometimes. So on Ubuntu-based distributions, we have these little things called PPAs, and then there are these things like Mesa that you can slap on the bleeding edge one.
Yeah, you can really mess up your install with those.
You sure can, and that's what got me to the point where I've learned to love, and why I was so sad that KaOS couldn't give it to me. I learned to love TimeShift.
Okay.
And so TimeShift is a graphical backup utility. It supports rsync for all the file systems, but supports Btrfs snapshots as well, right in the GUI. So I've used TimeShift for a long time using rsync. I mean, because by default, Ubuntu installs on ext4, right? So rsync is your option there. And I've used it there for a long time. I'd say 95% success rate with TimeShift and rsync on ext4. But the moment I started testing on Btrfs and making dumb changes, I'm talking going into the configuration files, breaking fstab, all kinds of crazy things, right? Btrfs on TimeShift. And yes, I totally understand you can use Snapper and all these other tools to make things work in Btrfs, right? But that's not the point. The point is that it's a GUI thing that makes it easy. It behaves a whole lot like what's the Mac OS time something, whatever. Anyway, that thing.
No, that's a different one.
It doesn't even matter because this is not Mac user space, though.
It is not.
Yeah, if you want Dan and I to buy a Mac and make Mac user space, we can totally do that. Just give us a week while it comes in. But TimeShift, right? I mean, you're able to take these snapshots. It does it automatically in a lot of cases. I was talking to Vince in Discord, and we were doing this Arco Linux test out for Btrfs to see if it would just work because they had a new update where you could choose your file system of choice. And I chose Btrfs. I installed TimeShift on it. I did a Pacman SYU, and immediately it said in the Pacman SYU, telling TimeShift to take a backup. And I'm like, what?
Nice.
It's integrated in. So that was really cool. Anyway, so I felt real confident. And I told Vince, and I'm still pretty adamant about it, that was the thing that would get me to consider more heavily daily driving an Arch distro as opposed to
that makes sense.
Something a little more Debian based or a little Ubuntu based. Because right, I mean, and I know it's not all the time that packages just totally bork your system, but in Archland, it happens enough that if I don't have some kind of escape hatch, I'm not going to want to run it. And so this is, sometimes
it's not even so much that you don't know how to handle it. It's that you don't have time right now to do it.
I don't want to do it. Yeah,
exactly.
I don't want to go in and roll back that package myself. I want to just press a couple of buttons and let the system roll back for me. And this is an Arco, by the way, which is a distribution that we tested last season.
We did. That was great.
And it just the fact that it ran so quickly, so well, and it's peace of mind. So TimeShift for me is a peace of mind kind of thing. So it's an easy way to clean up an oopsie in the command line because you made a configuration to that one file and you don't remember what you did because you're like me and forgot to write it down. And by forgot, I mean you just didn't. Or an
copy
update.
Pasted something and
totally
blazed right over it.
Change that to a 1 to a 0. Whoops, that was the wrong thing.
Yep.
Or I mean, especially in a case like where you have PPAs or you're running on Arch and, an update might break the system. That's where TimeShift really shines. Cool. If you think you want to roll back, TimeShift will handle it for you, whether that's an rsync or in my new favorite file system, Btrfs. And that's it, right? I mean, because on my desktop, I have the latest and greatest Mesa on Linux Mint, and sometimes that's not perfect, right? Because it's hot off the press GitHub stuff. And if it doesn't like my video card this time around, it just not gonna work. So Timeshift is fantastic for situations like that.
Cool. This is definitely a tool that I need to try out. I generally gravitate towards CLI tools, but having a GUI is a nice thing, and I think if it makes it easy, then that's something I need to implement in my workflow.
Well, let me allay your fears, Dan. There is such a thing after you install Timeshift called Timeshift-CLI.
Oh, that's winning me over.
It'll handle all your Timeshift stuff in the command line. You do not have to use the GUI tools, and I think that is one of the most fantastic things about Timeshift, where it's an easy-to-use tool. You don't have to look under the hood. You just press backup, and it backs your stuff up. Or you can be a super, super crazy power user like Dan and drop down to the command line and handle all of your snapshotty things or your backup things through that.
Cool.
Dan, I think you and I had a fantastic time running KaOS over this past month. I know I did.
I really did.
Ah, man. It's good stuff. It's good stuff. A diamond in the rough, even.
Mm-hmm. It needs more publicity, and I'm glad we can bring that.
Me too. But that means that our next show is topic-based. So all of the drama that comes out between now or anything that's happened in the past couple of weeks, which is a lot.
Nah, there's nothing that ever happens.
Yeah, that's right. The Linux community is straight-laced. We never blow things out of proportion. We never create a lot of drama, so we'll have nothing to talk about in the next show. But somehow, the show must go on. So we'll have ourselves a topic-based show next time, but we have another distro that we got to get ourselves on. We got to get up in the saddle of another distro. But you know what? This time, it's not a distro. I'm probably going to ruffle some feathers with that. It's not a distro. It's not. And I'm going to stand on the rooftops and I'm going to shout it, and it's not a distro. Dan, what not a distro am I talking about?
I think you're talking about Arch.
You're absolutely right, and I'm going to tell you it's not a distro. It's absolutely 100% not.
Well, you're not completely wrong. It's more of a guide.
I'm not completely wrong because I'm 100% right. It's not a distro.
I don't know.
It's got a name. It's got a name and it's got a logo, but it ain't a distro.
Well, it is what you make of it because it is yours. That's what this is. Arch is a guide that you follow to build your own thing. So if you want to call it a distro, it's your own distro.
That's right. It's LeArch. That's what it's gonna be, and that's what we're gonna title the next distro episode. It's gonna be called LeArch because it's gonna be my distro. So Arch is not a distro, but what I make of it is a distro, and then all I got to do is figure out how to roll an ISO, and then everybody can download and install LeArch, and it's going to be great.
Yeah, sounds good. We are actually going to try to install Arch two ways. So Arch has a new installer. It's a command line installer, but we're going to use the new installer, and we're also going to follow the guide and do some other way to install Arch as well.
So what you're saying is we're going to put it all together ourselves, and then we're going to check out that newfangled installer that they've got out there that seems to allow folks that aren't quite ready for Arch to be quite ready for Arch.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I think we need to give our take on both ways. They are both Arch installs, if you will, according to everything I've read. It's not like slapping on Calamares or something like that, but it is still a supported Arch install.
You've said it. I think you've said it. It's an Arch install, not an Arch distro. Maybe that's it. Okay, I don't know.
Well, you keep spinning it.
Yep. I will.
You got a whole
absolutely, month. 100%. Spin you right round, baby, right round. And if you have any opinion on whether or not Arch is a distro or not, you hit us up on those socials, right?
Leo.
At me, bro, because it's not a distro. Thank you, everybody, for listening and for all your support. I swear it keeps growing and growing and growing.
It does.
Dan, where can we find you outside of here?
You can find me at Casey2BEZ.
And you can find me at Leo Chavez on Twitter. Join us in 2 weeks when we return to Linux User Space.